She walked into the university lobby like she had done 100 times before, books in her bag, determination in her step. But this time was different. A guard's glare followed her every move, sharp, accusing, as if her very presence was a crime. In seconds, what should have been an ordinary afternoon turned into a spectacle. Whispers spreading, phones rising, tension thick in the air. One man believed he had the power to decide who belonged and who didn't. But what he didn't know was that this day would shatter his illusion. The question is, when truth collides with arrogance, who truly wins? It was a crisp afternoon on campus, the kind of day when the university buzzed with energy. Students hurrying between classes, laughter spilling from the quad, the steady rhythm of footsteps across tiled hallways. Aliyah, a bright and determined student in her final year, balanced her books in one hand and a folder in the other. She had grown used to these hallways, the bulletin boards filled with announcements, the chatter of classmates discussing exams, and the quiet pride she carried as one of the few young black women excelling in her program. To most, Aliyah blended in as just another face in the crowd, another student chasing deadlines and grades. But to those who truly knew her, she was much more. She was sharp, ambitious, and unafraid to speak her mind in class. Professors often called on her, not because she demanded attention, but because her insights cut straight to the heart of discussions. Her friends admired her calm confidence, the way she never let anyone's opinion shake her sense of self. Yet beneath the polished rhythm of her daily routine, there were cracks in the surface. The subtle stares in lecture halls, the whispers she caught when she walked into certain rooms, the feeling of being measured in ways others were not. Aliyah had learned to brush it aside, to bury her focus in her studies and her future. Still, the weight was always there, silent, but heavy. On this day, as she crossed the sunlit courtyard toward the library, she felt that weight a little stronger. She didn't know why. Maybe it was the way a group of students glanced at her as she passed. Maybe it was the sharp voice she heard echoing ahead. But she didn't yet realize that this ordinary afternoon was about to unravel into something far from routine, something that would test not just her patience, but her dignity itself. The library steps were crowded with students, some sprawled across the stone benches, others rushing inside with laptops under their arms. Aliyah climbed them with ease, her mind on the research paper she needed to finish before the week ended. But just as she reached the door, a sudden voice stopped her cold. "Hey, you can't go in there." She turned. At first, she thought the voice was aimed at someone else. But no. The security guard at the entrance, a tall man with broad shoulders and a rigid posture, was staring directly at her. His hand was raised, palm out, as if she were already guilty of something. Confused, Aliyah shifted her books in her arm. "Excuse me." The guard's tone was clipped, impatient. "This area's restricted. Faculty only." Her stomach tightened. She knew the library rules better than most. This was a public wing, open to every student. She had studied here countless times. "I'm a student here," she said evenly, pulling her ID badge from her blazer pocket. But he didn't glance at it. His eyes never left her face. "Don't play games with me," he snapped. "I've seen enough of your kind trying to slip through." The words hit like a blow. Your kind. Students around them slowed, some pretending not to notice, others whispering to each other. Phones shifted subtly into hands, raised halfway, ready to capture. Aliyah felt the burn of their stares, the heat of humiliation creeping into her chest. Her first instinct was to walk away, to keep moving, and let the weight of the moment dissolve. But his stance blocked the doorway, his shadow long against the glass behind him. It wasn't about rules. It was about power. "I showed you my ID," she said again, her voice steady, though her hands tightened around her folder. The guard leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "Don't raise your voice at me. I'll have you removed." Gasps rippled from nearby students. Aaliyah hadn't raised her voice, hadn't moved an inch, but the accusation hung heavy, designed to twist the truth, to paint her as the problem. Her chest pounded. She thought of her professors, who expected her research, her friends waiting inside. Why was she being made to prove her right to be here? The injustice dug deeper with every second. Then a louder voice cut through the air. "What's going on here?" A faculty member, a professor Aaliyah recognized, approached from the side. The crowd shifted, eager for confrontation. For a moment, she thought this might resolve the tension, but the guard turned to the professor, his finger jabbing toward her. "She's trespassing," he declared, his words sharp, designed to sting. The professor hesitated, eyes flicking between Aaliyah and the guard. And in that pause, Aaliyah felt the weight of history pressing down. The too familiar fear that authority would believe him over her, that his lie would become her reality. She opened her mouth to speak, but before she could, the guard stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear, his words venomous. "Go home. People like you don't belong here." The crowd hadn't heard it, but she had, and now the choice stood before her. Stay silent and let him win, or stand her ground and risk everything. Her pulse raced. The students watching leaned in, phones raised higher now, anticipation thick in the air. The confrontation wasn't over. In fact, it had only just begun. The air in the lobby turned razor sharp, every breath heavy with tension. The security guard's voice rose above the murmurs, his words slicing through the silence. "Step back, or you'll be escorted out." His finger jabbed toward Aaliyah's chest, his tone filled with authority, but beneath it, unmistakable hostility. Phones were fully raised now, their tiny red lights blinking. Students who had once passed by indifferent were frozen, recording every second. Aaliyah could feel the invisible weight of judgment pressing in, the unspoken question, would she shrink or would she stand? Her chest tightened, fear pulsing through her veins. She thought of the headlines she'd read, the names she whispered in quiet prayers, people who had been silenced when they tried to stand their ground. For a moment, her throat ached with the possibility of becoming one of them. The guard stepped closer, so close she could see the vein pulsing in his temple, the anger etched across his face. His words dropped to a growl, low enough for only her to hear. "Say one more word, and you're finished." Her pulse thundered, but her gaze didn't falter. She remembered why she was here, not just for herself, but for everyone who had been told they didn't belong. Slowly, with steady hands, she raised her student badge higher into the light. The gold lettering gleamed, undeniable proof of her place. A ripple ran through the crowd. Gasps broke the silence, followed by whispers that grew louder. "She's a student." He tried to stop her. The guard's face drained of color, his certainty crumbling. For the first time, he looked smaller, trapped by the truth exposed in front of dozens of witnesses. But instead of stepping back, his anger twisted into something harsher. His fist clenched, his jaw locked, and he shouted again, louder than ever, "Get out!" The word reverberated through the lobby like an explosion. Students flinched, some gasping aloud, others holding their phones higher. And in that split second, the line was drawn. Would Aaliyah be silenced under his roar? Or would her defiance turn this moment into something no one could ignore? The guard's shout still echoed through the lobby, but its power had already broken. The crowd wasn't silent anymore. A voice rose from the back, soft at first, then stronger. "She belongs here." Another followed. We all saw it. One by one, students who had stayed quiet began speaking, their murmurs growing into a chorus of truth. The guard's authority dissolved under the weight of so many witnesses. His hand trembled at his side, his anger suddenly exposed for what it was, prejudice masquerading as power. Faculty arrived, pulled by the commotion, their eyes darting from Aaliyah's steady stance to the crowd of phones aimed at the scene. Within moments, the confrontation that was meant to humiliate her had turned into undeniable evidence. Aaliyah didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence, calm, unwavering, defiant, was louder than any shout. She stood in the sunlight, pouring through the tall glass windows, her badge gleaming, her dignity intact. And the guard, once so certain of his control, stepped back. But the victory wasn't just hers. The entire university had been forced to see what so many tried to ignore: the ways bias seeps into daily life, the way authority is too often abused against those who are simply existing in their own space. For every student who had felt unseen, unheard, or unwelcome, this moment lit a spark. Aaliyah left the lobby that day not with triumph in her stride, but with something deeper: the quiet knowledge that truth, once revealed, can't be erased. She knew the fight wasn't over, but she had made a mark that could not be ignored. Because this wasn't just about one woman and one guard. It was about every voice silenced, every person told they didn't belong. And the question remains: how many more Aaliyahs must stand before the world finally chooses to listen? Don't miss more powerful real-life stories. Hit subscribe now.